Welcome and get ready for a front row seat on Icons with Ava Johanna, the live show that is raising the bar in the entertainment space worldwide. You're about to be right in the middle of heart-pounding conversations and real-time connection that ignite transformation within. Our global live show stars the industry's powerhouses, visionaries, and cultural icons. Together, we'll walk the path of legendary entrepreneurs, influential business moguls, celebrities, and iconic brand architects. Join the conversation, seize the opportunity to engage directly with icons of their industries, and immerse yourself in an unparalleled learning experience. Icons isn't just a show. It's an opportunity to step into the minds and hearts of industry leaders and run with their advice. So grab your popcorn because this is the space where icons are born. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Icons. I am so excited to be here and so grateful to be joining all of you live. Yay! It's going to be such a good conversation. I have Sam Daily with me. Miss Samantha Daily is a 7-figure business mentor. She mixes strategy, spirituality, I would say sassiness as well too. And she also is the host of the Make Shift Happen podcast, which has over 1 million downloads. You can listen to it anywhere where you stream podcasts, Apple, Spotify, YouTube now even. And if I'm being honest, it's one of my favorite podcasts besides my own. So I'm so excited. Sam, I gotta say, like, you are such an incredible podcast host. And I think that that's why it's one of my favorite podcasts is that you are willing to ask the right questions and like ask the deeper questions. And it feels like such a dynamic conversation. And that's why I'm so excited to have you on here today, because I know that we are going to be the furthest thing from bored in diving in together today. So thank you so much for coming on.
Yes. Oh my God. Thank you for having me. What an intro. Yeah, and thank you for such an amazing compliment about the podcasting. We've recorded before, and I know we had such good conversations last time on your show and my show. So yeah, I think I don't know what's in store, but like we'll find out. I think it's going to be a good time.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so too. And one of the reasons why I wanted to have you come back on is because when I started seeing, I would say like over the last year and a half, a lot of people in the coaching and spirituality and just wellness industry overall start shifting into what I would say a bit of a pack mentality in their branding, in their offers, in how they were speaking, in what they were posting. I saw you stay completely in your own lane and do your own damn thing, march to your own damn drum. And in doing so, have created such an electric brand that feels so much bigger than the online space. And I know that you do that really intentionally. And it comes through in your retreats, it comes through in your masterminds, it comes through in your programs, comes through in your messaging as you're speaking. And I just think that there's so much value in that right now because if we're being honest, as this industry has grown, it has felt like there's been kind of these people at the top that then trickle down into how other people brand and speak and talk and create offers. And I just find that to be incredibly soul sucking, but also not a strategy for success. And so I really want to kind of like shake up the energy today and just inspire people to really stay in their own lane. And so that was a big inspiration for why I wanted to have you come on.
Well, thank you. Oh my gosh, it's so nice to hear. And I actually had a client recently reflect to me, like, you inspire me so much because of your individuality and how you just like always stay unique and true to yourself. And it's interesting for me to like receive that feedback because I think, we spend so much time in our own heads as business owners and trying to find our way that sometimes we don't well, I don't think we ever really see ourselves the way that other people see us, right? That's how it would be so beautiful if we could view ourselves the way that other people view us. But yeah, I don't think I ever really was like, wow, I'm like so unique or like staying in my own lane or like I I I guess it was just part of my natural tendency to do things my way and express myself in the way that I wanted to rather than just, copy and pasting a template from a mentor or from, someone who I see like, oh, this aesthetic is working or this type of post is working. So I'm going to copy that. I've just never really been that type of person. But Yeah, it's nice to receive that reflection. And I think we do need more of that because there is a lot of that kind of copy and pasting or pack mentality, as you described it as in the industry for sure.
What would you say from your own perspective is like your, I guess, like strategy, but I know that so much of it comes down to just like your personal life that has allowed for you to just stay in your own lane and keep your head down? Because it is easy when you have to go onto Instagram or you have to go onto whatever platform it is to create your content and to post to, get distracted by Instagram stories or get distracted scrolling in your feed and see what other people are doing. And I find that sometimes there there can be a very thin line between what is inspiring for you versus like what is just influential. And I always have this question in mind whenever I go to post of, okay, is this post coming from a place of inspiration through my own personal life, through a conversation I had with a client, whatever it might be, or is it coming through influence because I saw somebody else do it, or because I logged online and saw someone else selling, and so now I feel like I need to be selling. So I feel like so much of that comes down to who we are even outside of our business. And I'm so curious, like your process and how you've really been able to not get distracted?
Yeah, such a good question. So, in one of my masterminds, I walked myself through this process first, and then I built this like high level business mastermind. And I was like, these women need this because of this exact conversation that we're having. And so I walked them through this, creative vortex challenge, like a month where, we just kind of mute and unfollow everybody in our industry and put those blinders on of like really being in your own lane. And we did a bunch of other things as part of the challenge too. Some of those things were like going on non-stimulation walks. So walking outside with no podcasts, no music, no audiobooks, no phone calls, no texting, like just you and silence and movement. Um, and and then the other piece was, the social media of kind of like unfollowing and muting everyone in your niche or in your industry that would normally, give you that sort of influence when you log on of like, oh, well, they're doing that. That's a great idea. I should do that for me too, or I should do it in my own way. And in a lot of ways, like that stuff is really innocent. And sometimes it's fine. There's certain trends or sounds or things that are happening where it's like, I want to jump on that and I want to do my own version of that. And that's fine. But I think if you are feeling like you're in a creative rut or you've lost that kind of ability to really like channel or have intuitive downloads of something that feels really unique to you, then that might be something that you need is to shut all of that off and get back into your own sort of creative vortex of finding that centered place where you have your own unique thoughts again. I think something that happens to a lot of us is because we're plugging our ears so often, quite literally with headphones, and information and content and trainings and all of the things, we don't really have our own unique thoughts anymore. Like we're having so many thoughts throughout the day, but most of us, while we're cooking, cleaning, walking, showering, like doing any of those tasks where we would usually have time to think, we are shoving our ears with somebody else's thoughts and somebody else's process and somebody else's advice. And so I think that really separates us and disconnects us from that creative energy and that kind of ability to like channel and get in tune with your own ideas.
Mhm.
And so that's something that I take pretty seriously in my own business. So I'll go through seasons. I'm not like, I'm not the type of person that like doesn't follow anybody on social, although I think there's value in that if you need to do that for a season. But yeah, there's times where I am really in touch with everybody and, the people in my industry and what they're doing, and I'm staying really connected. And then there's times where I'm like, all right, it's time to get back in the zone. Like, goodbye, everybody. I'll be back. But like, I just need to not see any of that. I think there's also value in consuming content that is outside the bounds of coaching or your niche and just getting inspired by other types of creatives or other types of people that like even celebrities or just someone who's like a little bit different from just like this one niche narrow space that we're in.
This is all so valuable. And I went through a big season last year of feeling so disconnected from my intuition and so disconnected from my own channel. And it's funny because I think that sometimes our natural tendency is that if we feel disconnected, we reach for someone outside of ourselves to help us get connected again, whether it be, like you said, listening to a podcast or even like guided meditations. I
Yeah, we're like,
struggled to,
I need to get inspired. So then you
yeah.
try to like have other people inspire you. And a lot of what really needs to happen is for you to just like be in silence on your own.
Yeah, exactly. And I finally got the download of like, just shut it all out. Shut it all out. Focus on your practices. Go even deeper into your meditations, your breathwork practices, journaling, all of these things that are for some people so elementary, but also revolutionary to being able to connect to ourselves. And that's when the channel opened. And it was so cool to see. It was just like that proof that so much of us are seeking in being able to trust ourselves and knowing that we are connected in some way. And since then, I've been so deliberate in prioritizing that again above all else because it was like that for a while. And then you grow and you get excited and you're plugged into spaces and it kind of starts to knock you off of your path of knowing and of being deeply spiritually connected to your own channel. And so I love that you're saying all of this because I do think that there's a lot of people that especially as we had to adapt to only being able to connect with each other online, kind of lost their way and feel confused and feel less than inspired about their work. And, like I was saying to you before we hit record and went live, I feel like this whole past year, even really since we had our last podcast recording together, which by the way, for everyone that's here live and anyone watching the replay, go back and listen to that episode because it's so good and it really sets a foundation for this conversation today. And if anyone has any questions as we're moving through this, if you're here with us live, feel free to use the YouTube chat and I will be checking it throughout the conversation. But I really feel like this whole past year, you have been so in your power, in your content, in your messaging, where it doesn't feel like it's coming from anyone else. It feels like it is coming from you, the way that you're saying it, the perspectives that you have around the coaching industry, around client relationships, around being a business owner. To me, I feel like you're kind of flipping this industry on its head, which is a really refreshing approach to what so many people are preaching and saying and coming back to the heart of why we're in this to begin with. And I remember seeing several posts of yours, maybe this was like 6 months ago, that were really just all about client results and working with the intention of not just getting more people inside of your world, but really focusing on the impact that you can have on the people that are already there, which is like such a simple concept, which for us, when we're talking about it now, it's like, well, duh. Like, of course, we're here to create high quality experiences. But again, it's like so many people are just focused on how can I have more? And I'm so
Mhm.
curious about just your thought process on that because I think it's a really important conversation and also what leads to greater success.
Yeah, I think that there is such an invisible ROI to so many things that we can do or not do in business. And a lot of times, unfortunately, we're only focused on the immediate return on investment that is visible and tangible and most of the time monetary, right? Like that's what people are looking for, at which you're running a business, you need to make sales and that's all good. But what I mean by that is, if you're going into a launch, let's say, and you're just obsessing over how many people that you can get inside of a program or how many sales that you can make, and you're just trying to cram people into masterminds or programs like, sardines in a can. How many people can we get in here? And it's just about that number. I think a lot of times that can come from a place of ego. And the main thing that I want to highlight here is that there is an invisible ROI to really doubling down on the results that you're able to get people and the relationships that you're able to build in the services that you offer. And I think people don't focus on that enough. They're like, oh, yeah, like, everyone likes my work. That's fine. But it's like, how much could your business grow if the people that you were already serving fucking loved the experience that they had with you, right? Like reputation, you only get one, and it's very easy to mess that up. It takes a really long time to build a good reputation, and it takes 2 seconds to disintegrate it, right? And the visible ROI of giving a great experience to people and making sure that your clients feel loved and held and they're getting a great transformation and they love the experience is that one, you're going to get better feedback, better testimonials. The word of mouth is huge, which again, we forget about because we're so zoned in on like, oh, this is, online business. Like I'll just get more clients when I build my following and like new people, new people, new people. But, these are things that are as old as time when it comes to building a business. It's really important. That's why customer service is so important in every other industry. And we know that customer service can ruin a restaurant. It can ruin a hotel. Like it's so important that we're providing a quality service and people are getting more than what they came for when they're with us. And that ultimately will grow your business. So I think some people feel like there's this trade-off of like, well, if I only serve X amount of people, then I'm only going to make X amount of dollars. And the only way for me to make more money is to, pack this program or fill it with so many people, but then the service kind of gets diluted. Just depends obviously on what the offer is. Obviously there's offers that are designed to be scalable, right? But depending on the service, I think some people are really trying to scale offers that beyond what they're designed to be scalable for. And then they're losing
Mhm.
the potency of that service and they're losing that invisible ROI of having all of those people that were part of it be like, I just did the most amazing thing. I got this incredible result. And like actually telling people about it. That's
Mhm.
that's one of the best things that you can have in business is people that come back to work with you on something else because they were fucking obsessed with the thing that they first did with you. And B, talk to other people about it because they can't believe how much their life has changed or how potent it was or how beautiful the experience was or even just like how much you cared, and how they could feel that your heart was actually in it and it wasn't just a money grab for you, but it really was this beautiful experience and symbiotic relationship of coach and client of knowing that this person really cared for me and they cared more than just about my success and wanting to screenshot my money wins, but like they also really cared about, how happy I was and if I was feeling fulfilled and if I was moving in the right direction for what makes sense for me and the time that I have and the lifestyle that I want to live and the values that I carry and the priorities that I have in this season of life. So, all of those things I think are not as sexy in the kind of like masculine realm of business, but I do think that they're really, really important and they also carry a really big return on investment.
Yeah, absolutely. In the chat, they're saying concept of invisible ROI. It's so easy to focus on the numbers, but love that concept. So it's definitely landing. What would you say are some implementable things that anybody listening to this conversation could take away and say, okay, I'm going to start doing this, and it's going to instantly have an impact on my client experience?
Well, some of the things, I mean, I guess you can just ask yourself. I was going to say you can't teach this, but I think a lot of us come into this industry really, really anchored in our hearts of how we want to help people and how we want to serve. And then as you grow and you start to become more business minded, more marketing minded, more money focused because you are working on scaling a business and growing that and managing more and holding more and you have more responsibility and you have more visibility. I think sometimes there can be this very gentle, slow sort of sway where we do get a little bit shifted away from that initial heart centered mission. And we find ourselves very focused on just the numbers and the business aspects of things. So maybe someone could ask themselves to, go back in time and remember when you were first starting your business, when you hadn't even made a dollar and you would just be so excited if someone bought like a $100 offer, like how you treated those clients and how you posted on social back then and how you shared from your heart. And is there any difference? And are there any parts of what you used to do that you would like to maybe reintegrate a little bit into where you are now. Obviously, you're at a new level, you're a new version of yourself. It's going to look different. We're not trying to go backwards, but it's just like going back, tracing that mission back and getting re-anchored into the heart space of like, yeah, like I really cared so much about this, or I really showed up in this way, or I used to share so much about this other thing that I don't really talk about that anymore. And just kind of looking for things that we can reintegrate and learn from our past self that did enter the business or coaching space, like it's so pure, like in a state of such purity, right?
Mm.
So that's one thing. I also think, focusing on the current offers and services that you already provide, how those could be up leveled or adapted so that the experience is even better. So maybe you're someone who is like always wanting to create something new and you put out a lot of new products or programs or courses all the time. And maybe there's a season that you're feeling called towards, which is less about like producing and creating the newest shiny thing. And it's more about like, okay, I have a lot of really great stuff. How could I make what I already have even better? Right? How could I make sure that my students, their completion rates in my programs and courses is even higher? How can I facilitate this journey so that it's even easier for them? You know, that was one thing that we were really focused on this year was client experience, especially in our masterminds and wanting to facilitate people fully watching and consuming the trainings more and having on the go access and doing things like private podcast feeds so that for people that don't want to sit down and have to watch all these videos, they have it in their pocket on their phone so they can, revisit things when they're on a walk, or it's downloadable now so they can consume it while they're on the airplane. That was something that people told us. We love to watch trainings while we're on the airplane, but if it's through Kajabi or Zoom or something, like we don't always have access to that because it's not downloadable. And so just thinking about like ways that you can really make your client experience a lot better. And yeah, I also think that it almost is like when we went into the pandemic, there was such a huge revolution of personal growth and people that had never done this work before finally starting to look at themselves and reevaluate a lot of things in their life, relationships, boundaries, all the things. And so I think there was this huge revolution of people wanting to become more boundaried, right? More protective of their energy, becoming really aware of what was worth their time and what wasn't, who they wanted to spend time with and not, what they wanted to do for work, what they're charging their worth, and getting what they deserve in terms of their time expenditure. And then as everything, there's always a pendulum swing. And so I feel that during this, past couple of year time period, we've become very boundaried. And I've seen this show up in the coaching space as well, where we all started and we're like, I'll give you everything, talk to you all the time. Here's my phone number. And like, you were so in it like all the time. And then you were like, wow, this is really overwhelming. And then during the pandemic, it was like, okay, let's set some boundaries. Like, this is my Voxer time. I'm only answering questions on these days. Like, you can only talk to me here. These are the rules of this mastermind. Like, only ask questions in the chat. Like, we're not doing like, and so everyone came up with all these like rules of how to like restrict access to themselves. And I think what I've noticed is that we've gone a little bit too far, at least in some parts of the industry where people have become so boundaried and so protected that it almost carries this energy of like arrogance a little bit and like feeling like people are untouchable in a sense. And so I have a lot of clients that are like, I kind of want to like go back a little bit and like give my one-on-one clients my phone number, or, I want to be a little bit more available for these people. Or I used to only do like one call a month in this program, but I kind of want to do like two or three now. Like, and I think that's a trend or maybe a direction that we're going in a similar parallel to what I talked about at the start of going back to that original version of you that was so anchored into your heart-centered mission, is also like reevaluating the access that you want to give people. Obviously, in certain spaces and offers, it's going to make more sense than others, but really like cracking yourself open and just becoming curious about like how might it feel if I was to adapt this or change this so that the client experience was better.
This is all so good. The boundary conversation was one that I wanted to have with you because I do feel like that comes back to a lot of the restriction and like walls around even our hearts. And I feel like when we have too strong of boundaries, yes, it makes sense for some programs and some experiences, but also in those more intimate spaces, it can feel really cold-hearted and it can feel very transactional
Yeah.
when someone is so boundaried that it feels like you're only there based on their rules and you are not going to receive any bit of them outside of the boundaries of their own rules. And I just kind of fucking hate that. It
Yeah.
feels really
Same.
gross, you know? It's like you spend thousands of dollars to work with somebody and then the container is over and they like never blink in your direction ever again. And I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, that's so interesting
Yeah.
how there was this care for a period of time,
Or not. Like
potentially, or
sometimes
not,
it's not
yeah,
even
or a
there. And you're like,
facade. Yeah, or the facade of care, and you're just like, okay, that's interesting. I'll take note of that. I feel like this is all really good though, because there's like a reorientation happening, a like restoring of balance happening, because the pandemic was fucking crazy, and the like emergence of people into this space, both those purchasing and being clients and consumers, and those choosing to put on the hat of coaches and teachers, really rapidly increased. And what I've found over the last like year and a half, especially, is that a lot of people are like, oh, you know what? That was me adapting to what was necessary right now, but that's not actually what I desire. And yesterday I was listening to a Gabby Bernstein podcast, and she was saying how, over the last year or last several years, she focused on her Dear Gabby podcast and like going live on Instagram and doing all the online stuff, that she forgot about being a motivational speaker, putting on these
mm,
events and being out there in the world and like creating her own damn stage. And it literally, I was getting ready. It brought me to my knees, Sam. I was like, oh my God. Like I felt like I got kicked in the gut because it was just like you said, a remembering of what cracked my heart open to begin with and what my why was to begin with and what was important to me to begin with. And I know that you also have over the last year or so had a shift in priority and where you are really focusing your energy. And I know client experience is one of that, but can you share a little bit about like maybe even some revelations that you've had over the last year and how you've applied your own personal values and what are your priorities into your business structure?
yeah, I think last year was like a huge year in the business. I felt like, and at the start of the year, you know how we do like the word of the year thing. So many people do that. So my word of the year for 2023 was momentum. And then by the end of the year, I was like, oh shit, like I now I know what momentum feels like, because momentum is what when you are like running downhill and there's so much energy behind you that you actually don't even need to move your legs. You would fall anyways, but that means now that you have all that energy behind you, you have to move your legs even faster or else you're going to face plant. And so that was kind of how I felt in 2023. And I was like, interesting word choice. That I chose
They always
momentum.
get us.
I know in some way, shape, or form, you're like, fuck. It's almost like when you ask for a wish from a genie and you have to be like so careful about how you word it because there's always going to be a shadow side or like some sort of caveat where it's like, well, you didn't exactly say. So that's kind of how I felt at the end of last year. I was like, oh yeah, I chose momentum and I fucking feel it because I just felt like I was, running downhill and I was about to crash. And I kind of did crash at the end of the year because I had two retreats that were really close together in timeline. And then I was psychically attacked on both of those retreats and made physically ill, which is a whole other conversation. I did a whole episode about it on my podcast, but that was really wild. I didn't even know what psychic attacks were, but yes, it's a real thing. And so I was ill on both of those retreats. And then I had a lot of travel. And then we had like a personal crisis where um, $70,000 was stolen from us. And so my partner and I were like navigating that and just like a lot of just I felt like so much was like coming to a head at once. And so that like culmination of several things happening within, a 1 to 2 month time period really, and it was right at the end of the year also. So it was December. And so over the holidays, I was just like as you do, reflecting and kind of looking ahead to the new year, like what do I want to focus on? What's my intention? And that was where I was like, I really want this to be my kind of like soft CEO era year where I really dial in on the priorities. And I think one thing that had fallen to the wayside in 2023 was just general like wellness in a sense. Like I was not walking enough. I was really barely ever working out. I would miss a lot of meals because of work stuff and just forgetting to eat. And yeah, it was just like the self-care and like the wellness aspect that I think sometimes goes to the back burner when you are in like a, really big momentum period in your business as an entrepreneur. And so I was like, I just realized that I have nothing if I'm not well. And the things that are most important to me that I would be the most devastated by would be losing valuable time with my family and my loved ones and getting sick or falling ill to where I'm not able to live a normal life or, be mentally healthy because my physical health is bad or vice versa. And so I was just like, yeah, those things need to come way ahead of the business. And that wasn't really how it was operating prior, to be like totally transparent. And so that was just, yeah, a reorganization of priorities. And as we kind of talked about before we went live, like I'm posting less. I feel like I'm a little less present on social media, but you reflected to me that like you feel like when I do post, it's like it was worth the wait because there's actually something there. And so maybe that even brings us full circle to that kind of like creative vortex when I have time for myself. Um, there's more relevant things that are actually coming through rather than me just trying to sit down and be like, what am I going to post for content today? Got to do content, 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 content. And so it's just a different energy, I think, that I'm approaching business with this year. There's a lot more behind the scenes happening, a lot more delegating, a lot more team stuff, like getting people to really help me create my vision and double down on things like the podcast that are really important to me and all the client experience stuff. I brought on a new OBM that's helping me with all of that to make sure our clients have a great experience and just yeah, multiplying what we already have rather than, trying to be this, person that's always putting the new best hottest shiniest thing out all the time.
Yeah, I love this. I have been talking to so many people who have said that so many of those simple things that, you know, in our minds come kind of obvious of, make sure to go for walks and drink enough water and make sure to eat all of your meals, how quickly it goes to the wayside when good things are happening because we're excited, because we're in it, because we're busy. And as much as I hate that you had to have that moment of like kind of like breaking down and realizing that you had reached your boiling point, it is so valuable because it completely changes how you show up in business and it restructures it in a way that is necessary. Like I feel like every single time that I've had that for myself, I've always had to make bigger decisions that can sometimes be intimidating or stretch me, but they've always led to me having more space and me being able to create more happiness in my business. And if we don't feel happy in our business, if we don't feel fulfilled in our business, then it's not going to be around 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now.
Yeah, absolutely. And like to your point earlier that you made about a lot of people, there was this like resurgence of like, oh my gosh, the coaching space is so big and everyone's coming in, whether they're coming in as like clients, observers, listeners, or coaches, practitioners, service providers. And then now we're sort of going through this almost um, like I don't know, like this filtration year, I feel, because a lot of people have lost and the climate has changed, right? Like the online space was so hot and heavy during those years because everybody was forced to seek their connection and their entertainment from purely online because we weren't allowed to do much else. And now that that has changed, along with many other things, but like algorithms change and there's a lot more users, so it's harder to get reach. And I just think that we're going through a period where a lot of people that jumped on the bandwagon of this, which is fine, but sort of like are realizing, I don't actually know if this is like who I want to be forever or if I even want to do this anymore. And so I do feel like there's like a peeling away that's happening in the industry. And it's interesting to see, I have like close friends and peers and people that are like, yeah, I got a job and like, I'm not doing that anymore.
Do you feel like there are other things that could be in place for somebody that does have a big heart and does have a lot of passion behind it, but maybe potentially is struggling and is like at that turning point, like things to prevent them from burning out or like completely losing their connection to this work?
I think that you probably have people that you follow and content that you consume that you need to get rid of because the constant like pedestaling and like idealized view of like what should be happening in your business is one of the main reasons why you're probably feeling like what you're doing is not enough or it's wrong. Like it's so amazing that we have this capacity for unlimited earning potential in the coaching space. And it's fucking awesome. And I am so here to celebrate all the women that are, you know, creating movements and helping people change their lives and making millions of dollars while they're doing it. But I also know that for a lot of people, seeing that as like that's the standard of like what should be happening in my business, that might be really fucking with your energy and not allowing you to actually show up in your own unique, authentic energy and like do what's important for your business and your clients because you're just in a rat race of trying to like, oh, I should be there by now, or it should look like this, or I should have this many people in my program, or my offer suite should look like that person's, and I need more products and I need more. Like that is gonna just pile on to how you're already feeling if we're talking to that woman who's like on the edge of like, should I stay? Should I go? In terms of like, the coaching industry and their business. So I do think that you probably need to unfollow and mute like quite a lot of people and just like go into your own creative vortex, get back reconnected. Everything that we've talked about actually in this episode, think about like why you started, what was exciting to you back then, what was the purpose, and where did we lose that, right? What is your focus on right now that's making you disappointed or upset or feeling like it's not enough? And could we shift that focus to something else? I also think just like really tangibly, I say this to all of my clients that are earlier on in their businesses. If you're expecting your business to be your main source of income and it's not at that level yet, that's going to create a lot of stress, a lot of pressure, and it's probably going to tank your business anyways. So if you are in a space where you're like, okay, things have changed, like maybe it's, I'm not doing as well as I once was, or you feel like it's slower growth than what you wanted, like maybe you need to have a side gig or a part-time job or something that like brings you in a sense of real stability and security so that you have like the passion and the overflow to go into the business. Because if it's all just pressure, then of course it's going to feel like shit.
Hmm. Yeah, I find that there can sometimes be some ego that comes up in that position where it's like I want to be done with my corporate job. Like I want to be in this full time. Like it feels bad that I'm not in this full time. It feels wrong that I'm not in this full time. I'm judging myself because I'm not in this full time. And to me, I wish that I kept my full-time job longer than I did. I wish that I had more contract clients longer than I did because those first 2 years really of me being on my own and just working with brands and coaching clients and the podcast sponsors was so stressful. I put so much pressure on myself. My nervous system was shot. I was miserable in my business. I was miserable in my business because all I was looking at was this thing needs to perform so that I can survive. And it's just such an unhealthy energy to hold in your system every single day. Like I would wake up in the middle of the night stressing about money, anxious about where it was going to come from, anxious about how a launch was going to do. And it just breaks my heart that a lot of people feel like there's only the validation of like being a successful business owner once you get to the point of like not needing anything else outside of you versus looking at that thing outside of you, whether it is a side hustle or, working in an office part-time or working in an office full-time as like your VC investor. Like it is your investor of your vision and of your dreams so that you can chill out and relax and build it from a place of ease and flow.
And so many people are in that like stressed out, oh shit space that you talked about. And the fucked up thing about that is then you also have this weird thing because you feel like you can't actually share that because it's not helpful to, like, you can't share that on social because it's not helpful to the vision of trying to create this, excitement and image around your products and programs. And so there are literally so many people walking around with those strung out nervous systems. They're stressed, they feel pressure. Oh my gosh, like I have to land this. We got to get clients. This has to make money. This has to do well. And then they're like, and it's like it's manufactured, but because they're doing it out of necessity. And
Hmm.
it's part of human nature. Like we do what we need to do in order to meet our needs. But I think over time that creates another issue on top of it, which is like I feel disconnected because I used to share so openly and authentically with my audience. But if I were to do that now, it would be like, hey guys, I'm feeling really stressed out because not enough people bought this thing. And like, you know what I mean? It's like it
Yeah.
becomes hard to be fully authentic then if you have that, pressurized relationship. And there does have to be a little bit of like a facade in a way. And that doesn't feel good. Like nobody likes to have to like wear a mask or put on a brave face if they're not actually feeling that way. So yeah, I think it creates a whole other set of challenges.
For you at this point, being where you are in your business, having a large community, a large audience, tons of people tuning into your podcast, tons of people inside of your programs, what is your relationship with that now when you're navigating it? Is that where you just choose to retreat and not be on social media anymore? Or are you pretty open about sharing the struggles that you're going through? Or maybe that's why the podcast has been something that you've been focusing on more so since it's long form.
Yeah, I think like there's inevitable stress and pressure that comes with launching specifically. I know a lot of my clients face that, especially if it's like a public launch or an open close type launch where it's like it's a group thing and we got to get X amount of people in here so that they have a great experience and they're not just sitting there with like one other person, right? And I think that creates a lot of pressure for people. So I definitely still feel that to some degree in my own launching and selling, although thankfully the business is at a point now where I kind of am like, I know that like we're gonna hit the, minimum standard at least, if not exceed what we did last time. So I think just like general growth in business allows you to overcome some of those initial like pressures and stresses and fears because you're stacking proof of like, we've done this and we did it again and we did it again and we did it again and we did it again. So you can anchor back into the truth of like, I know I can do this. I've done this multiple times. Like, and you have more of like a true confidence in yourself and your ability to launch, sell, produce, perform, whatever. Um, but yeah, like of course there's times where I get like overwhelmed and I also get into like my comparison where then I feel distracted and disconnected from who I am and what I want to say. And that's when I put the blinders up and I will either take a break from social media. Last year I did a 10-day break and it was really nice, or I'll just do something where I, unfollow, mute, kind of just like I'm only following, friends and trying to not focus on like coaching industry specific stuff, to just kind of purify like where I am and what my thoughts are. And then, yeah, like I always just remind myself, like, I know that I'll be okay no matter what, because even if and I literally sometimes have to take myself to worst case scenario just to soothe the anxiety of like, let's say nobody gave a shit anymore about anything that I had to say or anything that I did. And everything just went to zero. Let's just say I'm still really talented and I'm still really smart and I'm still a really great communicator. And I could probably find another different way to expand my career, whether that is in, some sort of corporate realm or it's, starting a different type of business. I just always anchor myself back into the self-trust of I have my own back and no matter what happens, like I know that I'll be okay. And sometimes I really do have to walk myself to that worst case scenario and talk myself through it to soothe the anxiety of whatever's going on or the overwhelm.
Mhm.
I've had multiple times where I've, sort of questioned, like semi fantasized about, I wonder what it would be like to just like have a regular job and just like close my laptop at 5 and, not think about it at all until Monday again. And you not be looking at Telegram all the time and responding to messages or, trying to delegate tasks and tell team what to do and doing approvals. Like, I wonder what it would feel like to really just clock in and clock out. Um, But then I always laugh because I'm like, I would fucking hate that. There's parts of it that seem like such a liberation, and then there's parts of it that seem that feel like such a constriction or like a jail cell where you're like, oh, and then I wouldn't be able to go on vacation whenever I want, and I wouldn't be able to do this, and I wouldn't be able to work from home, and I wouldn't be able to, and there's all these things. So yeah, like I think self-trust, I always say, is my number one business strategy. And I think that applies to exactly what we're talking about of just anchoring back in. No matter what I have to do, no matter what happened in business, I just know that I would always have my back and I would be okay and I would figure it out.
Mm. This is one of the most important beliefs to install as a business owner. Because if you like really deeply believe that to your core, you're fucking unstoppable. And I appreciate you so much for being transparent and vulnerable around like still having to walk yourself through that scenario because there are moments when I still have to walk myself through that scenario too. Like just because someone makes $1 million, just because you see somebody that's even making $1 billion doesn't mean that they don't have those same anxieties, those same fears or doubts come up because we're human and we never know what is going to happen. But if we do have that baseline self-trust at the forefront of every single decision that we're making, every single action that we're taking, I think we're going to be okay. I think that we're going to be more than okay. So I'm curious, outside of self-trust being your number one strategy, one of the things that I love about you is that it's very clear that you approach your business through a spiritual perspective and spiritual principles. And so can you share some of the ways in which you blend spirituality with strategy and business?
Yeah. I think it's interesting because I started my own personal journey into like personal development through a pretty spiritual lens. I started to get like really curious about God and religion, even, and like asking myself questions. And I studied abroad in Spain, and it's a very traditionally Catholic country. And I witnessed all these processions and, things at Easter time that they would do in the streets. And I don't know, like I was never really like a religious or spiritual person per se, but having those experiences, I just started to get curious and I wanted to understand what people were feeling. I saw these people waiting in long lines to like kiss the foot of Jesus on like a statue. And it was kind of gross. Like all these people just like kissing it one after another. But there was just curiosities, people standing in the street and they see this um they see this statue of the Virgin Mary coming down and they are falling to their knees. They're collapsing. They're bawling their eyes out. There's such pure, raw emotion. And it was just so I don't know, it activated like a level of curiosity within me of like, I wonder what that feels like. Like, what are they feeling? What is happening here? And so my whole journey into personal development really started through that spiritual lens. I started reading books, I started following pastors. I found Gabby Bernstein. I just kind of started to get into all these different ways that people felt supported by believing that there was something outside of themselves taking care of them. Um, and I think I hold like an interesting belief because of the fact that I don't really think that I don't really think that there is one capital T truth when it comes to spirituality, religion, anything that you believe in. I know that that's what creates a lot of divide and a lot of problems in our world is that there's some people that are like, this is the truth and you are all wrong. And then other people are like, no, you're wrong and this is the truth. So my stance with spirituality is really that it doesn't matter what the truth is. I don't really think that it does because none of us actually know. We're all pretending to know. We think that we know. We can try to find certain elements of that truth through teachings, through mentors, through books, through scripture, through whatever. But at the end of the day, we're all going to find out what that capital T truth is when we cross over and when we die. And while we're here, we don't get to access that. And so I don't think that it matters if in this realm we understand what the truest truth is of all. It really just matters that we are believing in something that's going to make this experience better while we have it. Right. And so being able to believe in something outside of yourself, even if you have doubts or questions still of like, well, I don't know if that's fully true. Like maybe you're like, oh, I like the idea of guides or, having some sort of spirits or loved ones that are with me, protecting me. I like the idea of that, but like, I don't know if that's factually true. I'm just kind of the belief of like, well, which one of those beliefs supports you in living more bravely and feeling more protected and supported and being able to trust yourself and the world to go after the things that you want, desire, and deserve, and just really choosing the belief that is going to make your current experience better rather than choosing the belief that's going to hinder it in some way. And so I think the skepticism, the pessimism, the cynicism, all of that, maybe maybe we are all wrong, but I don't feel like it's my job or of any benefit to me at all to try and like pick things apart and figure out like what is actually the truth. I'm just really here to lean into the things that feel the best for me so that I can be my best version in this lifetime. Because the truth of the matter is, by believing that there's something bigger than me that protects me, that loves me, that's taking care of me, that's guiding me, that there is some divinity in this plan, that, the dots will all make sense looking back, that things happen for me, not to me, that there is a reason for things, that I'm always, through every challenge, through every setback, through every heartbreak, through every deception, that I am learning in some way, I'm growing in some way, it's forming my character, it's molding me, it's helping me become who I need to be so that I can get where I'm meant to go. Believing that makes me better. And so I could not do business the way that I do it without having that. And so that's kind of what I bring into the strategy, is that spiritual element of like, are you connected? Like, do you feel faithful? Is there something that you can lean on in those times of doubt and fear? Because we all go through, the ups and downs and the ebbs and flows. Entrepreneurship is such a roller coaster. It's a spiritual journey. It's emotional whiplash. And so being able to have that anchor is so, so, so important.
Whew.
We went to church.
We just went to church, the Church of Sam Daily. I love it. That was so beautiful. I mean, talk about being connected to your channel. Just listening to you speak and the flow in which you were just sharing was, I mean, I'm in awe. I love that. I love that so much. It's so beautiful. And I think I always like to think of things from like the nervous system perspective too, because we do understand through neuroimaging and research that the way that we feel influences who we are and our identity and the pathways in our brain. And so I love just your approach to it's not so much about exactly what the truth is, but more so about how your truth makes you feel, because that does have truth behind it. That does have hard rooted research behind it, that when you can elevate how you feel, you will elevate how you think, you will elevate how you act. So, what a beautiful way to close out this conversation. My last question for you, and the chat is going off with how this conversation is resonating. This is a mic drop moment.
Mm.
So I love it. And I know that this whole community has been loving this as well too. But I'm so curious, what are you excited about? What's coming next for you? I obviously shared about your podcast. I know you have your mastermind. Are you hosting any retreats this year? What's going on in your world?
Yes, I'm taking a break from retreats this year. That aligns just with my soft CEO era of not doing events this year. Except for, I do host an in-person immersion with my mastermind students. But yeah, I leave on Sunday for Egypt, which is going to be a huge
Wow.
initiation. I'm going on a retreat. I'm participating in something. So it's an 11-day pilgrimage with other 7 and 8 figure business leaders. And I just know that it's going to crack me wide open, and there's going to be a lot of inspiration, downloads. My intentions are really to just get even further connected to my own intuition, what's meant to be next for me. I have a lot of questions arising for me now about what my timeline is in terms of like becoming a mom. So hopefully there'll be some clarity there. So that feels exciting and scary. And I don't feel ready, but I feel curious, and I'm having more thoughts and dreams and things about it. So I know that there's a seed there. There's something for me to uncover. There's a lot of fears wrapped up in the idea of being an entrepreneur and, being the breadwinner and also becoming a mom. So I'm excited to have a new challenge at some point soon down the road, hopefully. Um, and yeah, just like continuing to serve my clients and um, put out the programs that I know are really awesome and get incredible results, and just doubling down on what is working and growing the podcast even more. Like that's my baby right now. We're finally on YouTube, which is brand new for me, so that's exciting. So yeah, those are my things coming up.
I'm so excited for you, and it's going to be a gift to just be able to follow along. For everybody here that is new to your world, will you share just where we can find you, follow you, stalk you, consume, and binge on all the things that you do?
Yes, yes, thank you. You guys can listen to the podcast. It's called Makeshift Happen. It's on Spotify, Apple, YouTube. My YouTube handle is underscore Samantha Daily. Also, I hang out mostly on Instagram, so you can find me there, underscore Samantha Daily. I also have a TikTok. And yeah, I think those are all the places.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This conversation was so soul nourishing.